Now laid to rest, Pope Francis has been eulogized as a pope among the people, with an open heart towards everyone. His funeral mass brought together hundreds of thousands of mourners, ranging from refugees to royals. Indeed, ashes to ashes, dust to dust is a saying for a time like this. But importantly, there are questions that hang over the future of the Catholic Church. The most important among them is who will be chosen to lead it next. Now, next, we have another subject, which is despite escalating tensions between India and Pakistan, thousands this week gathered at the Wagah Atari border for the iconic closing ceremony. The event, marked by patriotism and ceremony, has become a powerful symbol of both unity and division amid ongoing Kashmir violence. The atmosphere was filled with the sounds of Bollywood music as soldiers from both nations performed a synchronized march, showcasing national pride. However, the usually symbolic handshake between the two sides was conspicuously absent, as the iron gates separating the countries were firmly locked. The ceremony was set against the backdrop of recent violence in Kashmir, reflecting the heightened diplomatic and security tensions between both countries. But it also provided a platform for citizens to express national pride and witness the dramatic flag-lowering ritual that has long symbolized both unity and division. Ambassador Joe Keshi is a retired Nigerian diplomat. He joins me now from our Abuja studio to share his thoughts on the departed Catholic pontiff, Pope Francis, and the off-and-on tensions between India and Pakistan, which got triggered again by the recent terror attacks in India-administered Kashmir region. He will also, of course, talk about the United States, whether the United States is pursuing efficiency or retreating from the world. We now have Ambassador Joe Keshi with us from our Abuja studio. Ambassador Keshi, thank you for joining us on this Live.
Thank you, Ruben, for having me on this bright Sunday day that Liverpool is set to win the league.
Okay, if Liverpool wins today, they take the title. They're just, as at last week, 1 point away from the title. Is that your team, Liverpool?
Yeah, that's my team. That's why I'm so happy to be here this afternoon, but eager to go back and continue watching the game.
Okay, let's go
it's
through.
Already 2-1.
Let's go through this very quickly. Now, the Pope Francis, was buried yesterday. Big event attended by royals, diplomats, watched all over the world. And I know you don't joke with church every Sunday. Every Sunday morning, I try to reach you. You are already at Mass. But as a Catholic, I'd like you to just talk about Pope Francis.
Yes, I'm sure you asked a question about the funeral service of the late Pope Francis.
Yes, correct.
I was attended by over 100 and something dignitaries and more than almost 250, people from all over the world. I think first it tells you a lot about the Catholic Church itself, but it also tells you a lot about Pope Francis, who has been described in so many ways as a people's pope, a pope of, who particularly preached mercy, a pope of love who loved the poor, who campaigned for the migrants, and a pope who showed leadership in the Catholic Church itself. He's probably one pope that has avoided the traditional visits to Catholic countries and just gone to places where other popes have not gone before in his attempt to try and unify faiths. And I think the number of people, the dignitaries, testify to the respect and to the love they have for the Pope himself, to Pope Francis. We are sorry to see him go, but look, at 88, I think he has lived according to the teachings of Christ, and we have no doubt in our minds that he'll be welcomed to the heavenly Jerusalem.
Well, Ambassador, some side events reported from there. One, there was some tittle-tattle about President Trump wearing a blue suit and how that amounts to a diplomatic faux pas. Is that a breach of diplomacy? And then the meeting between President Trump and President Zelensky on the issue of the Russia versus Ukraine conflict, and Trump saying, "Oh, it looks like Putin, President Putin, is not ready for peace." Now, the protocol part of it about suit, color of suit, and then, of course, the other part about Russia versus Ukraine, and the meeting on the sidelines between Trump and Zelensky. Hello, Ambassador Keshi? Ambassador Keshi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I was asking you about, protocol. President Trump wearing a blue suit, whether that amounts to a diplomatic faux pas, and also, the meeting with President Zelensky, and Trump now say, "Oh, it looks like Putin is the problem." That's not what he said a few days ago when he was blaming Zelensky. This flip-flop, and then let's start with the color of the suit. Is that a crime in diplomacy?
No, it's not a crime. It's just that I think the European tradition has always been to be in black suit for events like this. And as a matter of fact, if you look over the years, you find out that in big events like this, European leaders, Western leaders, so to say, are oftentimes in black attire, complete black suit, white shirt, and in some cases also black tie. But Trump is notorious for his red ties. But look, I think we are just making an unnecessary fuss over this. My view is that, when you live like a king, the water, even the water you take to take your bath is prepared for you by your servants. The dresses you wear are brought out for you and put on your bed. Even your pants, everything is set for you, your shoes, So yours is just get up, dress up, and then go to an event without paying attention to the colors. Maybe this is what happened to Trump. But the truth that must be said also is that Trump seems to love wearing blue suits. So he may have paid no attention to it at all and just went to the event, But some media observers just thought it was strange to attend such an event in blue suit, But protocol-wise, I don't think that he created any upset for anybody.
Okay, there were complaints too that during the funeral service, he was chewing gum, he was playing around with his cell phone and all of that. But the meeting with Zelensky and, the reporting that he now thinks that perhaps President Putin is the problem.
I think we just have to wait a little more, give a little more time to see whether Trump will not go back, to reading from the Russian playbook. The fact that I don't know exactly, we have not heard the details of that meeting, but that they met at all, it's significant. And I sincerely hope that what we are hearing from Trump is a gradual shift from the position he has held, before, and the way and manner that they were driving the peace talk. First, they were hoping that this peace agreement could be signed before the first 100 days. That is not possible anymore. I think on Tuesday, Trump would have clocked 100 days. So the chances of a peace agreement between now and Tuesday is out of the question. The second thing is that I'm not sure that the Americans themselves have handled the peace, the talks, very well. They've been too much, number one, in a hurry. They've not done their homework very well. And the peace offer they are making to Ukraine, for example, look, it's almost like a death sentence. Everything is screwed against Ukraine. You don't make, that's not a peace agreement, you know? It's a recipe for disaster for Ukraine to start with. You want Ukraine to surrender territories. You want Ukraine to give up its famous seaport. You want Ukraine to sign an agreement, you know, for minerals. And no guarantee at all. And so nothing, what are you giving Ukraine in the peace agreement? Nothing whatsoever. I've never seen such a one-sided peace agreement in my life. And I sincerely hope that the conversation they had, you know, at the Vatican, maybe it could be the beginning of a change of mind. And we don't wake up tomorrow, Trump has gone to his former position of, you know, playing up the Russian leader. And look, the starting point is, let them agree on a ceasefire. And when they agree on a ceasefire, then they can begin to gradually sort out all the issues. There are more issues than just trying to achieve a peace by all means. That's not possible. And I think the reality is dawning on Washington.
Well, Ambassador Keshi, let's talk about the one that concerns us, the decision to close down the Bureau for African Affairs in State Department. Now, is this all about efficiency within the American system, or a further reflection of the United States under Trump retreating from the rest of the world? What does this mean for Africa? How can African countries try to address their own issues if America says it will not help them again?
Look, Ruben, this is more than retreating from the rest of the world. Quite frankly, I think that this is a complete disregard for the African continent. I have no idea, and I've been praying that colleagues in Washington, the ambassadors would have rallied around, and African ambassadors, and protested the complete, you know, dismantling of the African Bureau, which is like the African department that oversees the continent, you know, just like we have European department, American department, Asian department in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So to completely dismantle the African department, the African Bureau, I mean, I've been trying to find how to explain this. It's unheard of. And then you are going to relegate that department to a special advisor working under the National Security Advisor. How else can one treat or disregard a whole continent? But when you reflect more on it, I sincerely hope that African leaders will ponder this very seriously and come to the conclusion that they brought this upon the continent itself. Because, look, I have always made this point, and some people, you know, have always challenged it. We've had independence for 62 years, and we are still acting like a dependent continent. Why is Trump not doing the same thing with Asia? Because Asia is important, and the people of Asia, beginning from the Asian tiger, now India and China, they've worked hard enough to, you know, to become developed nations. But Africa still remains close to where it was, you know, when it got independence. Yeah, there have been some significant progress, but in comparison to Asia or in comparison to Latin America, we are practically nowhere. We can't even produce the food we eat. We don't even have enough. And we are, you know, it's a continent full of so many crises. In terms of development, where are we? So this is exactly why Trump is disrespecting the whole continent. And I think that African leaders should take this seriously. I'm actually surprised that not even the AU has even made a statement on this. And this is typical of African leaders, that when things like this come up, you know, everybody just pretend that it doesn't concern them. They're going to find a way to maneuver themselves and deal bilaterally with, you know, with Washington. But no. It's going to be far more difficult when you find that the whole African department has been downgraded and put in a small office with maybe 5 or 6 personnel to deal with the whole continent of 52 or 53 countries. Well, I think it's an insult. I hate to use the word racism, but that's all what it is.
No, sir, just a small caveat. Is this really about African leaders? Trump is fighting Canada. He's fighting Mexico. He has renamed the Gulf of Mexico. He's fighting China. He's fighting Mexico, Venezuela. So he's fighting everybody.
Yes. You are... No. He's fighting them. But he's not scraping off the department in the foreign ministry dealing with them. As it's been scraped off and downgraded, and with a special advisor and maybe a handful of officers, Africa is not going to get the attention that it deserves in Washington. It's probably going to even be harder for African ambassadors, to conduct business in Washington. So it's not a question of fighting everybody. If he's fighting everybody, why is it that it's only African department that is being scrapped from the State Department? I think we need to look at this very, critically, and I sincerely hope that our leaders, our ambassadors in Washington, will make some, protests. Will, protest the whole decision itself. That it's not fair to treat a whole continent of Africa the way Trump is planning to do. Yeah, I agree. He's fighting everybody.
Okay.
But he's hoping that they will come and negotiate. Now, should we go and negotiate and say, please leave? Look, the department performs a great role for Africa. There's no doubt about that. I've had opportunity to deal with that department. And it's just to be a huge department, yes.
Okay, sir.
So it's unfair to the continent itself.
Okay, the Pope of Peace has passed, he's been buried, but the world is still at war. Either in South Sudan or in Middle East, Israel versus Hamas, or Russia versus Ukraine. Now it looks like there is another war that is brewing between India and Pakistan. Attack on tourists, 26 persons killed. How should the world deal with this, escalating tension between India and Pakistan? They've never been friends anyway. They're both nuclear powers. Maybe it's only cricket where they try to be civil with each other when they play cricket matches.
Well, you started by talking of Pope of Peace. Let me just say that the Pope brought his moral strength into the whole conversation for peace around the world. And in his lifetime, and the next Pope is going to try to do the same thing. But there's a limit to which the Pope can only bring it. There's a moral strength to this conversation, and I'll continue to appeal to the world, to live in peace. It can't do more than the Pope. No Pope can do more than that to start with.
After all, Stalin once said, how many troops does the Pope command?
Does the Pope exactly? So that's the honest truth. Look, the Indian-Pakistan thing has been such a long crisis, but I'm not too sure that it will scale up to what you're having in some other parts of the world, because every time it flares up, the two countries have found a way of cooling tempers, as we say in Nigeria, bringing down the temperature so that it doesn't escalate into a blown out war itself. So my hope is that they will try and meet, and that they will find a solution to, at least temporarily, to the issue of the death of tourists. But whether it will escalate into a big-time war, no, I'm not too sure, because they've managed to keep the peace in that part of the world. That said, it's an area that we begin to look very seriously at. Ruben, what's so amazing about what's going on in the world today is that we're almost making the United Nations impotent. The United Nations is not seriously involved in Israel-Hamas war. It's not involved. It's not even in the talks in Ukraine, Russia. It's trying not too much in the Sudan, where it's doing its best. And in this also, and yet this organization, United Nations, was set up for world peace and security. And here we are, all over the place, one crisis or the other, and the United Nations, it's missing. I think it would be tragic if the world, simply allow the United Nations to collapse like the League of Nations did as a result of individual leaders not agreeing to play by the rules of engagement. Remember, this is similar to what led to the League of Nations that the United Nations replaced. So I'm hoping that world leaders will think seriously about relegating the role of the United Nations when it comes to trying to deal with world peace and security.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador Keshi, for joining us on This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show.